Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha, Radhanata Radha, Radhanata Radhe. Jaya Radha, Radhanata Radha, Radhanata Radhe. Jaya Radha, Rasa Bihari Radha, Rasa Bihari Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai, Shri Giri Govardhan ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Gaur Premanande. I think I'm just going to put my mask on. I just have a bit of a sniffle, so please bear with me. So Hare Krishna to everybody, and thank you very much for joining us this morning to discuss this wonderful book, I'll Build You a Temple, the Jew story, glorifying Shri Radha Rasa Bihari and Srila Prabhupada in his attempt to build the temple for their lordships. So this morning we'll be reading from the chapter entitled Preaching in Prayag and Bombay. It is a long chapter, so I'm going to concentrate on the first 10 or so pages. And that's relating to Srila Prabhupada's trip with the devotees to the Kumbh Mela in 1977, in January 1977. So we'll start reading from page 424. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmin Shri Guruve Namaha. Vanchakalpurubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnupaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Jini Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vicharine Nirvishesha Shunyavati Paschatya Deshanarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Hare Krishna, thank you very much again. Please kindly forgive me for any shortcomings and in this presentation, and yeah, please give me your blessings to present this wonderful book. So I will read a few lines as we go along, and try to summarize other sections, and we can't really get through reading most of this, but I'll try as far as possible to summarize as we go along. So, Allahabad Mahakumbh Mela. In Allahabad, so Giriraj Maharaj writes, in Allahabad, Prayag, at the confluence of the Ganges, Yamuna and Saraswati rivers, more than 1 million sadhus and pilgrims gather every year to bathe at auspicious times, which is said to guarantee relief from the cycle of birth and death. The annual event called Magh Mela is called Magh Mela. Mela means fair or gathering, and Magh is the month spanning parts of January and February in the lunar calendar. Srila Prabhupada told us that the site of the festival was considered very sacred because Mohini Murti had brought nectar there. Kumbha, he said, means the water pot. Every 12th year, the cosmic arrangement is even more auspicious, and that Mela is known as Kumbha Mela. And every 12th Kumbha Mela is even more auspicious, and that is known as the Mahakumbha Mela, where the star formations and astronomical influences are even more auspicious. So here we have an overview. Maharaj has given an overview of the history of the Kumbh Mela, and it is such an auspicious place because for me, when I read this, Prabhupada, Maharaj is emphasizing Mohini Murti, which is the incarnation of Lord Vishnu. And it's auspicious because Mohini Murti had brought this nectar of immortality to this place. So wherever Krishna or his incarnations are present, those places are holy and most auspicious. And of course, his devotees are there in the form of these 3 rivers, the Saraswati, Yamuna, and Ganges, at this confluence. It is known as the Triveni Sangam, the confluence of these 3 rivers. So in previous times, Allahabad was known as Prayag. So therefore, Maharaj titles this chapter Preaching in Prayag. And later on, it became known as Allahabad. So one may question, okay, why would Prabhupada want to go to this gathering? Because typically people want to go to bathe in the confluence at this auspicious time to get liberation or immortality. And as devotees, we're not interested in liberation. We're interested in love for Krishna, attaining pure devotional service. So Prabhupada actually explains his reasoning, and Maharaj writes on, he says, the Mela of 1977 was going to be Mahakumbh Mela, the first in 144 years. 15 million people were to attend, and Prabhupada wanted to participate. On his morning walk on Juhu on January 8th, Prabhupada explained the real benefit of the holy convocation. And he's quoting Prabhupada, quote, Kumbh Mela is satsanga. If you go to Kumbh Mela to find out a man of knowledge, then your Kumbh Mela is right. Otherwise, yatirtha buddhi salile, saeva goka. If one thinks that this is salile, the water, to take bath in the water, is Kumbh Mela, is gokara, a cow or an ass. The real idea is that now there is an assembly of so many saintly persons. Let me take advantage of their knowledge. Then he is intelligent. So Prabhupada is explaining his reasonings for going to the Kumbh Mela and the real reasoning as to why we should attend the Kumbh Mela. It is for the association, it is for Sadhu Sangha, to take the association of saintly persons in this holy place, this gathering. And Prabhupada quotes the Bhagavatam verse, which states that, you know, if one goes to a holy place um, just to take his bath there, then one is not considering that, this place is full of holy sadhus, and I need to take association of these sadhus. Um, then one is no better than a cow or an ass. So Prabhupada was very emphatic about it. And this is the theme as we read on these few pages on the Kumbh Mela. You see this comes up over and over. This idea of sadhu sangha, taking up the association of saintly people. So now at that time in excuse me, at that time in January, it's very cold, extremely cold, and like the middle of winter. And Prabhupada, this is 1977, so Prabhupada, his health was not too good, and this is, Prabhupada's final pastimes, final year on this planet, and his health, was quite fragile. But yet Prabhupada wanted to go. He wanted to go to this Kumbh Mela and undergo all these austere conditions. So they were making, the devotees, they were making arrangements for Prabhupada. And now Maharaj explains that there's like 15 million people who are due to attend this Kumbh Mela, because it's the Maha Kumbh Mela every 144 years. So the trains were all booked out. There was no possibility of the devotees getting a booking for Prabhupada. But somehow or the other, there was one good friend, a life member, Rabindranath Gupta. And he happened to be the chief engineer of the railway station, the trains. And he arranged for a separate carriage for Prabhupada, a first-class carriage, to be attached to the train. It is so amazing that the pure devotee had this desire, and Krishna just makes this arrangement to facilitate his preaching. And the devotees also had their compartment as well. So Prabhupada was accommodated in this way. And then Rameshwara Prabhu illustrates, he explains, that the anxiety, that the devotees had to go through, to get Prabhupada in to the site. And then we found that the campsite, so I've seen pictures of the Kumbh Mela, and it's like a very flat plain, and there's like hundreds of thousands of tents, and you can imagine 15 million people gathering in one place at the banks of these holy rivers. And unfortunately, the devotees were situated. They got a place for Prabhupada, but it was, in a place where it was like 20-minute walk away from the main bathing ghat or confluence. And Prabhupada was not very pleased with this arrangement, because it's stated here, Prabhupada, I'll just read a bit here. The campsite was out of the way on an island called Ganga Dweep, a 20-minute walk from the Triveni. Right? Unlike most other sites, it was too far from the city lines to get electricity. No front gate and no basic facilities. They had outdoor toilets. They had a pump for water for bathing. And this was the austere conditions that Prabhupada had to endure. So Prabhupada was upset. Why was he upset? So I was reading this, I was thinking, when we go to Vrindavan, we're looking for like a really comfortable place to stay. We need nice rooms, facilities. We may be looking for our own comforts. But Prabhupada was upset, not because of the austerity, but because of the location. And he explains his reasonings. He says, Prabhupada was upset about the camp's remote location. So it was far away, too far from the main action. Lack of electricity, both of which would limit the number of visitors. there would be no lights for evening programs, no electric heaters in the cold and damp and windy conditions, and no facility for his translation work. So Prabhupada, this was his compassion. Even in the midst of all this austerity, he wanted still his facility for translating and to be able to give his association, if the facility is not good, then how can you draw crowds to come, So therefore, Prabhupada wanted nice opulent temples so that people would be comfortable to come. So he was thinking about that. If there's no electricity, how is he going to, speak and give his discourses? So Prabhupada said, he told Bhagavat and Guridas, who got this land? He demanded. When I got here, it was an empty field, Bhagavat said. They told me, we are putting you on this land. The governor is there. Kalpatri Maharaj is there. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi is there. I thought you were with all the leading personalities. So, they put all these different so-called personalities there in that place, and they put Prabhupada there. So Prabhupada wasn't happy, but he basically he understood these disciples are inexperienced, they don't know much. But then the other concern was so amazing, is that he started talking about where is the prasadam. So again, we were thinking about prasadam for ourselves and the devotees, but he was thinking about food for life in the Kumbh Mela, prasadam distribution. So he says, why is there no prasadam distribution tonight? It's like, they had just arrived, and he's asking for, why is there no prasadam distribution? So you can see Prabhupada had the same program everywhere he went. Chanting of the holy names, hearing about Krishna, his translation work, and engaging the devotees in service, devotional service, and prasadam distribution. So he took that program practically everywhere he went. So on page 426 we're reading now. So there's some discussion about the prasadam and why the devotees didn't cater for it and so on and so forth. And then it goes on to explain Prabhupada's austere conditions in that tent, in that camp. So Rameshwar Prabhu explains, he says, for me every night it was the same routine. Rameshwar later recalled, no sleep, and then go outside to the pump. It was freezing, bitter cold, winter. And pump the ice cold water and take your morning bath. And Prabhupada was taking the same kind of baths, but in a private area behind his tent. That was our Kumbh Mela. They had no electricity in the tents, no heat. We couldn't get anything together. So the devotees, they felt very, pained by the situation, especially more because of Prabhupada and what he had to endure. So, and this austere condition. So it's enough to be in an austere environment, but also what about having frail health in that same environment? So they began to feel very sorry about the situation that Prabhupada had to suffer in such a way. And there was one devotee, Mother Kaushalya. She actually was so concerned about Prabhupada that she actually gave Prabhupada a saffron cashmere sweater. And it's explained here that when she gave it to him, he felt it against his cheek. So can you imagine Prabhupada's mood? He felt it against his cheek and he said, oh, very soft. Thank you very much. Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai. Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So you can imagine Prabhupada in this setting. It is so austere, but yet he's reciprocating with his disciple in such an amazing way. Here she is trying to offer something to Prabhupada, and he in such a gentle way, even touches to feel the softness on your cheek, We see, uh, you know, people do that, to feel the softness of something. Uh, so, and then he also gave an instruction. He said you should go and preach and open a temple in Bangalore. So it is really amazing, this exchange. I thought, uh, even in this setting, this austere setting, and Prabhupada suffering so much. So, so there was hope anyway. Maharaj explains here that the preaching started to pick up. Devotees or people started to hear about the ISKCON camp, and then they started to, come to the camp, and they heard about Prabhupada being present there. So it says the preaching was picking up. However, and word had begun to circulate that Prabhupada, the guru of the Hare Krishna movement, was there. People were coming to see him, thousands of them. So Prabhupada was, so attractive that even though his camp was far away, people were flocking to see him and get his darshan. So, so the devotees, they were still thinking that Prabhupada should leave the Kumbh Mela early. He had to stay till the 21st of January, and Prabhupada responds, the devotees were suggesting that he leave, but he resisted. He wanted to stay and preach. We must take advantage of the situation for Sankirtan. And then he says, my only ambition is that so many people can become enlightened. Our men must go for chanting and book distribution. So Prabhupada was, he had that mood of preaching despite his inconveniences. So on page 428, then Giriraj Maharaj starts to explain how Prabhupada encouraged the devotees to go out and have Sankirtan. And just last week, it was the 50th anniversary of the BBT. And Giriraj Swami was invited to speak on this occasion. And he read from this section here about how they were so successful in their book distribution at the Kumbh Mela. And he writes, many pious people had come for the Mela, so we were able to distribute thousands of books, 8,000 on just the first day. And the Kirtan party captivated people's hearts. Many had come from villages or remote places and had no idea that foreigners could become devotees of Krishna. They would bow down when they saw us coming in procession, looking like Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan party. Lie down flat on the ground, roll in the dust, pick up the dust and put it in their mouths. It's so amazing, this description of how the devotees were received by the crowd. They were so appreciative of this devotees chanting the Sankirtan party. And they were so humble that they would be offering their obeisances and taking the dust in their mouth. So the book distribution was so successful, and the sannyasis, Prabhupada's disciples, those were sannyasis, they would hold up their top cloth, and people would be throwing rupees or paisa into a cloth, and they were collecting in this way. And every time someone gave a rupee, they would give them a book. So like this, they were there distributing so many books. And people were so familiar with Prabhupada's books already. They would ask in Hindi, do you have Sugam Yatra, easy journey? Give me Janma Mrityu Sapare, beyond birth and death. So were they asking for Prabhupada's, all the different books. And in total, it stated that 30,000 books were distributed in the whole Kumbh Mela. And I was just thinking that, we have December marathon, and this is Prabhupada's, mercy and potency. We may have a whole congregation, hundreds of devotees, and we may distribute only that amount in 30 days. But here in a few days, the devotees were able to distribute, encouraged and enlivened by Srila Prabhupada and his mood, his preaching mood, and which is his compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. So Prabhupada wanted to give the real sadhu sangha. Just to then move on to the Kumbh Mela itself. So the aim of the Kumbh Mela for most people was to take their bath at this auspicious moment. And people would go through so much of austerities and expenses, etc., to gather to this place. And it's explained that in Prabhupada's camp, there was the devotees were going out and they're coming back preaching, and as I mentioned, there was many people wanted to take darshan for Prabhupada, but many people obviously were flocking to go and bathe in the holy rivers in the Triveni, and so Prabhupada also wanted to take his bath. He also wanted to honor that, but with the millions of people there, it was not possible for them to even go, for Prabhupada to even go. So what the devotees did, they took some water and they brought it in a bucket for Prabhupada. And then they gave it to Prabhupada, and then the next morning, they were very eager. They gathered around Prabhupada to know how his bath went from that holy waters. And then this is Prabhupada's response, I'll just read a little here. When Prabhupada gave darshan the next morning, everyone wanted to know how his bath had been. He thought for a moment and said that it was like any bath in any water from the tap. So this was Prabhupada, it's like, the devotees were thinking, hey, Prabhupada is just going to give some special, discourse or something about it, the whole effect of bathing in this holy waters. But this was Prabhupada's response, because he knows what's the highest goal, what's the actual goal. And he was teaching the disciples as well, what is the goal. Right, so now coming back to darshan, it's stated that the ISKCON camp, people were knowing about the ISKCON camp, and they were actually gathering around, and Prabhupada, although he was so weak, he was able to give darshan to the many people who were coming, and the devotees made some arrangement for him to speak, and it stated that even movie, radio, television people were there, along with the usual newspaper reporters. So it was quite a gathering of people, and there was coverage of the event, and Prabhupada was covered in this way. All the reporters had the same question. So they were asking questions to Prabhupada. And what was the question? What is the significance of the Kumbh Mela? And Prabhupada answered that the heart of the Mela was Sadhu Sangha. So the same theme that we spoke about in the first page is Prabhupada's mood of Sadhu Sangha and giving association. So he quotes Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hai. By even a moment's association with a sadhu, one can attain all success. And Ramakrishna Maharaj goes on to write about this in the book. And I quote, Giriraj Maharaj quotes Ramakrishna Maharaj. He says, though in India there were many sadhus, gurus and holy men, no one could come close to equaling Srila Prabhupada. By accompanying him in his travels, the devotees repeatedly observed the uniqueness of their spiritual master in comparison with all others. When they met in Allahabad to observe the Kumbh Mela festival, where all the saintly persons in India assemble once every 12 years, Prabhupada appeared as a brilliant full moon compared with all the other luminous personalities. Prabhupada said, one moon is better than many stars, And so Ramakrishna Maharaj is explaining, is giving that analogy, Prabhupada. He was sure shining, brilliant as the moon amongst all these so-called, saintly sadhus. So Prabhupada was doing this, he was lecturing, kirtan, prasadam distribution, and book distribution was ongoing. That was his program for the Kumbh Mela. Okay, and then Giraj Maharaj talks about, he goes back to Rameshwara Prabhu's concerns again about Prabhupada's ill health. So we see sort of a change in the mood a bit here. And Rameshwar Prabhu says, he tells Prabhupada, he says, Prabhupada's, sorry, I'll just read here. In the end, Prabhupada's illness posed too great a risk, and Rameshwar was able to convince him to leave. Right? And then, quote, this is Rameshwar Prabhu speaking, there is something much more important than your giving darshan to these people, he said, and that is writing of your books. Only a few thousand people are going to see you here, but if you go on writing, we will distribute your books by the millions. And so Prabhupada liked the argument that his writing was more important than giving darshan to the Kumbh Mela pilgrims. He liked that we had appreciation of his books, Rameshwar recalled, and he liked that we had the spirit of distributing millions of them. So he agreed to go. So Prabhupada left the festival earlier, and to concentrate now on in his writing, to move on. He did his preaching here, and he was eager to continue with his writing and his rest of his preaching schedule. So I just want to get back to now Giriraj Maharaj and his his sort of feelings during the Kumbh Mela. He writes here now that while they are making arrangements for Prabhupada to leave and so on and so forth, Giriraj Maharaj he would always be taking instruction from Prabhupada regarding Bombay. So it comes back to Bombay here now, even in the Kumbh Mela. And he had some questions for Prabhupada. And so Prabhupada was traveling, previous to this, Prabhupada was traveling like for a year, and Maharaj didn't have any much association with Prabhupada. So he had some questions, that he wanted to really ask Prabhupada. And so on the last day of the Mela, he wanted to approach Prabhupada, but he was feeling a bit shy. Sometimes we have this, with the spiritual master, especially, our spiritual master, we may feel afraid to approach him. Of course, we shouldn't approach with questions that we can, get answers from other senior Vaishnavas, or, work it out ourselves. But something that's really serious and that we really want to inquire in a humble way. So Maharaj, he writes here, encouraged by Rameshwar to present my thoughts and questions to Prabhupada, I approached him. Gopal Krishna kept insisting that I collect money, I said, but I felt I should also preach in the colleges and make devotees. What should I do? So he poses these three questions. This is the first question, And then Prabhupada, so he's talking about, wanting to preach in the colleges. And then Prabhupada replied, conversion was our first business. So in other words, collecting money was secondary. Although Prabhupada was putting up this huge temple, still the collection of the Lakshmi was secondary. First was always preaching. Because by preaching and pleasing Krishna, then naturally the Lakshmi will come. So that was Prabhupada's mood. And then next I asked about Bombay. Amogha Leela had been managing there, and I thought he should continue so that I could be relieved. But he wanted to do something else. Again, Prabhupada encouraged me. No, he said, you must be free to preach. I will speak to Amoga Leela and convince him to continue managing. And then his third question is, I also told Prabhupada that Sorab didn't appreciate my involvement in the construction and that it might be better if I withdrew from the area altogether. No, Prabhupada replied, your presence is required. So Iraj Maharaj, he's clarifying all these things, about his preaching, about managing in Bombay, interaction with the other devotees who are also serving there. He mentions Sorab, Prabhu, and then in the end he says, he talks about Prabhupada. His answers were both supportive and reassuring, and I felt closer to him than I had in years. So I'm reminded of Tadvedi Pranipatena Pariprashena Sevaya. The verse from Bhagavad Gita. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. He has seen the truth. So, the point here is that by inquiring submissively from the spiritual master about our service and clarifying our doubts, not only are those doubts clarified and we learn so much and we mature in Krishna consciousness, but also that relationship between ourselves and the spiritual master deepens. We feel the connection more. So therefore we shouldn't feel that, okay, I want to be behind the scenes and the other senior devotees are serving Guru Maharaj and I don't need to ask anything. No, we should write, we should approach or even our Siksha Gurus. We should, because then it deepens our relationship with them, because there is this exchange, revealing one's mind in confidence. That's there in the nectar of instruction. So this is the loving exchanges between devotees, and we can see that here between disciple and spiritual master. So I thought that Prabhupada was bringing that out, and Maharaj was explaining how he felt so reassuring in his service. What time are we meant to stop? 8:30. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. So so it's basically the last paragraph of the section dealing with the Kumbh Mela. So just to round off with a couple of points. One is that in terms of Prabhupada's mood, we find that when Lord Chaitanya went to the Kumbh Mela, he also went to the Kumbh Mela, and he spent like 10 days, successive days, he would bathe in the confluence of the Triveni. But Lord Chaitanya had the mood that Lord Chaitanya had stated in the CC that, he did three things, besides bathing, one is that he would, it stated that the rivers were low, it wasn't overflooding or anything, but Lord Chaitanya overflooded the place of the Kumbh Mela, and he overflooded it with the chanting of the holy name. So we can see, it is a parallel. Prabhupada did the same. He would overflood it with the Sankirtan party. And then Lord Chaitanya also he instructed Rupa Goswami at this place. It's called Dashameda Ghat. Yeah. So in the same way, Prabhupada was giving instructions both to his disciples, and they were distributing his instructions to the crowd in the form of his books. So he was also instructing in that way. And Lord Chaitanya also gave darshan to so many people. And then we also read here how Prabhupada was giving darshan. So thousands of people were coming. So in this way, Prabhupada had that same mood of Lord Chaitanya at the Kumbh Mela. So on this last few paragraphs, Yeah, I just want to round off by saying that, Giriraj Maharaj was also thinking that, when Prabhupada left the Kumbh Mela, they were left behind to distribute the rest of the books. And he was thinking, it's such a serene atmosphere, although it's so austere. They felt very peaceful and calm, and he felt this brotherhood, with the God brothers. And he was also saying, in that sense, I did not even want to return to Bombay. He was feeling like, it was so nice, the atmosphere there. And, it was away from the hustle and bustle of management. So a lot can be said about that. But sometimes, if you look at it, managing in the society, temple presidents and other people, devotees who are in management positions, it is not a very easy service to do. And then sometimes you feel that, you want to get away from it. So Maharaj says, he was very happy at the Mela site, being free from these responsibilities and these designations, And I thought of reading from another book of Maharaj, Watching the Seed, which sort of relates to this and Prabhupada's desire for Giriraj Maharaj, even though he had this feeling. So it says, while Prabhupada was in America, Tamakrishna Goswami and other devotees had secured one of the apartments on Hare Krishna land for his use. And then it says that, Prabhupada, he was concerned about his property be managed properly. So Maharaj writes, I was always attracted to the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, and I imagined that one day I would be like them, roaming the forests of Vrindavan, chanting Krishna, Krishna. Srila Prabhupada knew my mind, and one day he spoke to me. Raghunath Das managed his father's estate just like an expert businessman. Similarly, you should manage your father's estate, then go to Vrindavan and become a Goswami. So I thought that was sort of related to this. Maharaj was feeling that, free from, managing and stuff. But this instruction where Prabhupada says, first manage your father's estate and then you can, be free to go to Vrindavan and preach and be like a Goswami. So we actually see that in Maharaj's life that, also later on now, he's concentrating so much on his writing and preaching, and Prabhupada empowered him in that way, first manage your father's property and then, be like a Goswami. So I thought that was quite apt. And then the final part was Maharaj gives some realization about the people, the mood who came to the Kumbh Mela. He says that they were in the mood of going through all this austerity just to, come for liberation. But this was the Vedic mood, the Vedic understanding. And he writes, there's a pastime about this rickshawala. They wanted to approach him, to get out of the place now, to leave. And this rickshawala had spent the whole night, 3 o'clock in the morning, he went to bathe. And he was tired, he was exhausted. And they tried to pay him 10 times the amount to take them out of the place. And he refused. And then Maharaj's realization was, he says, I couldn't help but admire the man. For mukti, he was ready to do great tapasya, but he couldn't be bothered for the sake of earning money. So this ties up with Vedic culture, that someone born in India, especially Lord Chaitanya says, they have this mood that, I need to be liberated. At least they have this concept, this understanding. So I think with that we've come to the end of the section, and thank you very much for listening and giving me this opportunity to say a few words. If there's any comments or questions, we can discuss them now.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhu. It's such an important point, and it's so sweet that the value of visiting a sacred place is experienced in sadhu sangha. And my Guru Maharaj explains that 90% of our Krishna consciousness actually comes from Sadhu Sangha. Yeah.
Yes.
So even when we come to Shri Shri Radha Radhanath, we're so fortunate to be in association of the devotees, because that's how we actually get bhakti, from the devotees. And I was thinking about how fortunate we are if we can come into contact with a pure devotee, because that person's a tirtha. They carry all of the sacred places with them. They are points of crossing over into the spiritual world. So if we meet such a person, then it's more purifying to be in their association, even for a moment, than to visit all the sacred places. So we're so fortunate to be at Sri Sri Radha Radhanath in the association of the devotees and Srila Prabhupada. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you very much for that,
Hare
that
Krishna.
comment and that realization. Yes. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Gaur Premanande.
Não, pode ver, professor. Tira um pouco só. Estupro.